Hello, it's Culture Hang, and this is a bonus episode.
I'm
gonna hold my mic.
You are so blessed that we are doing
Yes.
not just one this week, but two.
Two.
It feels like we do one every other day now.
Yes. My life is Culture Hang. I live and breathe.
You live and breathe this podcast.
I live and breathe culture.
I'm so cultured.
I'm so cultured. And I like to hang. So, here we are, bonus episode, as a thank you to you, a gift to you.
A gift to you for an incredible first month. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. We're so very self-centered that our gift to you
is more of us.
More of us. So sorry to everyone that is our friend or our family that feels they now have to listen to an extra episode, but you signed up for this.
You did. You knew what was coming. It's in the title.
What, Culture Hang?
No, listening to this smut that's going to be non-smut and
well,
smut.
one is absolutely not.
One is PG.
Not
no, what's it if it's like okay for children? Not PG-13.
A
U. It's a U.
We have you here. I don't know what it is in America. They have a different system, I think.
Well,
they have different numbers.
Do they?
I think so.
Is that because you can drink later in America? So like you're just a child for longer.
Maybe. I feel like, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but when 50 Shades of Grey the movie was released in France, wasn't it released like to a much younger age range than it was to
everywhere
the UK and to America?
I hope that's true. That's so funny.
If that might not be true, so in my head, the America and to some extent the UK are just much more strict on their guidelines, but I don't think 50 Shades could really be anything other than an 18.
No.
But there's no drugs or violence.
There's some violence. What we're counting is, where's the line between...
There's no, gore. It's a nice little slap. But no gore.
But there's gore in Twilight, so...
Yeah.
It's all subjective.
What I'm saying is, we should lower the age rating. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not. Okay. Well, Here we are.
We have read... Oh, well, I've read Midnight Sun, and Hannah has read Grey. And now we're going to recount our favourite parts of these. Can I just start off, because I know you've had a similar experience to me, where it's been a struggle. I don't know if I just had read less. I definitely had read less when I was a teenager, when I was reading Twilight.
Yeah.
And I've reread them so many times. Like, they were some of my favourite books. I could barely get through some of the writing in Midnight Sun.
See, I don't know if it's that I haven't had to read for a deadline in a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Also, in my head, I was like, well, I can read a book for next week easily. Thinking, like, it would take a few nights of just, like, reading for a couple hours, and I would get through it. Because that, I'm pretty used to that. But I haven't done that in a bit. Yeah. Probably since before March. Probably since February.
Yeah.
Maybe, So, when suddenly it got to this week, and it felt like making my way through a really muddy field, because I felt like I was trying so hard, but everything was moving slowly.
Yeah.
And I kept getting to bits and being like, surely this is nearly the end.
Oh my God.
It never was.
Never was. And then you looked and it was like, because I was reading it on my phone and I knew it was 700 pages in reality.
It's 700?
It's 700 pages long. The original Twilight is like 500, so she's added on an extra 200 words. And honest to God, she did not need them, because Twilight, all the plot happens in the very final bit of the book, doesn't it?
This is less than 600, and
but still,
I don't know what Stephanie was playing.
That's a lot. They're long books. Like, why did she feel like these men had more to say?
They had nothing.
They had nothing to say.
Here's the thing. I'm more surprised at Midnight Sun, like, being boring, because at least you're getting some different perspective, because you're getting Edward and then a bunch of other people's perspectives, because he's reading their minds. So I think there is some value in, like, hearing that Jessica hates loads of people and that Angela is, like, just lovely inside and out. There is some value to that. There's no value to Christian Grey. I don't think I learned anything new. But I mean, fair enough. I haven't read the normal books.
Oh, that's so funny. So funny. You just read Grey.
I just read Grey. But I watched the movies, and from what I can tell, the movies are really similar. Mm-hmm. I didn't learn anything new. So.
Oh, why have they done this to us? We had such. I'm not high hope, but we had high hopes for Midnight Sun.
Do you know what? Yes, I did have high hopes for Midnight Sun. I had such low hopes for Grey that it was actually better than I expected. I'll get into that more later, but I will say, not the worst thing.
No.
Not the worst thing I've read. And it makes... I mean, I haven't heard what you have to say about Midnight Sun yet, but maybe Grey could be better than Midnight Sun if it's that boring.
Do you know, I think...
Sorry, Stephanie.
I think because I was trying to read it quickly as well, I was like, there's so much of this book still to read and nothing is happening. I'm just going to skim read, which is terrible because I wanted to... You know, we've been waiting, 15 years for this book?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how I felt last night, because when I started the book, I was really reading it in depth, but by the time it got to last night, yesterday, when I realised I actually still had half the book left, I began to really have a strong resentment towards E.L. James and why she thought that was good.
Why it was necessary.
Yeah, come on, E.L. Yeah.
Anyway,
tell us some stuff.
I have split my findings into 4 sections. Yeah. So I'm going to start with Edward being dramatic / manipulative to save you the hassle of reading the book, if you don't want to read the book. Because it is from his point of view. He does have to listen to a lot of people. So I just thought I'd get... This is the least interesting part about the book.
Okay.
But there are other interesting little tidbits that we'll get onto.
Lovely.
So the way that he initially describes Bella's skin... His descriptions of Bella are problematic, and we're going to come back to them in a minute. But he describes her skin as so translucent, it was hard to believe it offered her much defence from the outside world. And this is a minor point, but it's the fact... I'm imagining, like, she's got, like, one layer of skin covering her whole body.
Yeah.
And she's about to bleed out.
Of like, a frog.
Yes. She's
I don't know why.
She's a lizard.
I don't even think... Or...
Like, membrane-y.
Do you know or those wraps that you can get? I can't remember what they're called, but they're wraps. Not rats. Wraps.
Oh, but like you...
I thought you said...
Rats?
You eat? See-through rats.
Oh, no.
No, they're like wraps and you can see through them, and they have a name, but I don't remember it.
Do you eat them? What kind of wraps?
They're just like a normal wrap, but they're see-through.
Why are they see-through?
I don't know. They have a name, and I'm probably really ruining some great food for you, but I see them on Instagram all the time, and they weird me out a bit because you can see all, like, everything that's within the wrap.
Oh, squidged. So that's what Ella sees. Basically, that's what Ella thinks Bella looks like. Ella looks Edward looks...
It was lesbian?
Ella and Bella.
Sorry. Also, it made no sense. I just said it was lesbian.
We're off to a great start. Okay.
I prefer if it was Ella and Bella.
Ella and Bella would be... But Stephanie doesn't have the balls, and this was... I'll come on to this. So, he's got a lot of angst, and I know if you've been... Like, I don't really remember being... Do I remember being 17? I remember it dimly, but I
remember peaking at 17, so... I don't relate with Edward and his, like, angst.
It all went downhill from there.
Yes. Massively so. So I don't know what Edward's on about.
Yeah, I would love to stay 17 forever.
I'd be a dancing queen.
He's a dancing queen forever!
Dancing queen forever. you know, if you're 17 and you listen to the song Dancing Queen, you're always going to think it's about you. And Edward can have that forever.
Oh my god, I'm so jealous. Oh, why is he so annoyed? Anyway.
Yeah.
So he's full of things where he's all like, why did she have to come here? Why did she have to exist? Why did she have to ruin the little peace I had in this non-life of mine? Why had this aggravating human ever been born? She would ruin me.
Shut up.
Shut up, this is the thing. And so basically, the first probably 500 pages are like this, and it's filled...
500?
I would roughly estimate that, yeah. Until we get to the plot at the end.
Oh, Edward.
And then he does a lot of, like, repetition, which I get... Oh, I don't know. I don't get it. It just...
I get it, but no.
Another bit, he was like...
What sort of repetition?
Like a stalker, an obsessed vampire stalker.
Oh, that's not the best Stephanie, is it?
It's so... This is what
She had a while to write this. They had a while to edit this.
And
they came up with that list? Like, I'm so scared of him. He keeps repeating that he's obsessed.
And then he's annoyed that Bella could be interested in Mike at a certain point. He seemed so tediously average and unremarkable to me. But what did I know of Bella's preferences? Maybe she liked average boys. I winced at that thought. I can never be an average boy. How foolish it was to set myself up as a candidate for her affections. And then he calls himself a villain, but probably like, if you took a shot for every time Edward called himself a villain, you would be on the floor by the end of the book, because we get it, but it's like, honestly, that's why I was so angry at the end of it, because I was like, oh, we get it. We get it. Find a different word.
Yeah. Was it solely villain? Like, did he venture down any different word paths?
He calls him
just, I'm a villain.
He calls himself a monster a lot.
It's too Gabby Hanna for me.
It's too Gabby's done it so much better than Edward Cullen did at this point, so
yeah,
he can't compare to Gabby Hanna.
Edward wishes he was Gabby Hanna. Because this is before Gabby Hanna's on YouTube, like in the time period. So we can only assume that when Edward is aware of Gabby Hanna's personality and who she is, he will become jealous.
Yeah, because he's like, I could have been a YouTube person. I could have made a career out of this. I could have
screamed, "What if I'm the monster?" into the microphone. That's basically what Edward's doing into the mirror every day.
That should be like the byline on the book. Be like Edward screaming, "I'm a monster," into the mirror every day for 500 pages.
Accurate.
Oh, so these are the most like boring bits that I found.
Yeah.
He also makes a few uncomfy remarks about how Bella isn't like other girls.
Well, to be fair, she's not. She's different.
She's so different.
I mean, for one, she wants to die. And
I'd
say that that's so, like, unlike other girls.
Quirky.
So. She's quirky. She's different. She wants to die. She wants to leave behind her single father.
Alone.
Oh.
So, he says, normal human girls wouldn't raise their face to the drizzle that way. Normal human girls usually wore makeup, even here in this wet place. Bella never wore makeup, nor should she. The cosmetics industry made billions of dollars a year from women who were trying to attain skin like hers.
I mean, to be fair, it's probably hard for her to find a foundation with her, like, translucent skin.
Her frog skin. Her see-through wrap skin.
It's difficult. That's why she's not wearing makeup.
Yeah, she's too pale for the white foundation that I have to get, which is like ivory, and it's like 001 on every brand. Every brand, it's the whitest you can get, and it's 001. And Bella's just too white for it. She's not
Bella's
well.
Too white.
She's too
also, she's too clumsy for makeup. Like, you know, she'd be like doing
good.
her eyeliner, and a hand would like slip across her face.
She'd gouge her eye out with an eyeliner pencil.
She'd be like curling her eyelashes and rip all her eyelashes out.
Oh no!
So it's not safe for her to do makeup.
No, so she's learned that it's just it's not good. And it was just annoying because it was like come on, Edward. Like, Stephanie's had 15 years, and I get she's trying to write like it's 2005 still, but it's not 2005, so you had the chance to not do this, Steph. Anyway.
Yeah.
So Bella's not like other girls because she's wearing this big hoodie, and he's like, I appreciated this almost as much as I wished she'd worn something more like the soft blue blouse she had on last night. The fabric had clung to her skin in such an appealing way, cut low enough to reveal the mesmerising shape of her collarbones.
No, she was showing her collarbones.
She was showing her collarbones. What? Get that girl out of the sunlight because, oh my god.
How was her dad allowing that?
How revealing.
Was she allowed to honestly, I'm showing my neck today and I feel exposed.
Yes, I'm not. How dare you, Hannah?
Yeah, no, you're perfectly covered. I need to cover... Oh my gosh, excuse me while I change. I don't want to be shamed by Edward. Oh, no, my collarbone. Actually, why don't I have collarbones?
Where have they gone?
I'm just smooth. That's why I'm not like other girls. I just don't have collarbones.
You're just missing bones.
I'm not like other girls. I don't have bones. I'm just a floppy mess.
You think my bone is there? Think again. It's like in Harry Potter where his arm gets all like,
oh my gosh,
squidgy and it just completely goes.
Oh. Comedy gold.
So Edward gets turned on by her collarbones.
I think we all do.
You know, the sexiest part. He has some more angst about. I didn't know how to do this. How to court her as a normal, human, modern man in the year 2005. As a human, I'd only learned the customs of my time. Thanks to my strange gift, I knew quite well how people thought now, what they did, how they acted. But when I tried to act casual and modern, it seemed all wrong. Probably because I wasn't normal or modern or human. And it wasn't as if I'd learned anything useful from my family. None of them had anything near a normal courtship.
Well, I suppose that is fair.
He's self-aware.
Yeah, I suppose that bit's fair because none of them did.
No.
None of them have really dated a human.
No, they didn't.
Yes, I get that would be difficult, but I do think that he probably could grow with the times because if it
what else is he doing?
Yeah, if it had been 10 years, I'd be like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's difficult when you would be like a bit older than teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been 100 years. You'd think he'd be used to it. Like changing.
Yeah.
You'd think you'd just get used to that by now, but apparently not.
Apparently 2005 is just too far away from 1917 when he died. Also, the thing about the normal courtship,
yeah,
I didn't know this until it was revealed in a horrendous way, but Esme met Carlisle when she was a child and fell in love with him as a child. Then, when she was dying later in life and had all her troubles, she woke up and was just like, of course I'm going to be your mate for life because I fell in love with you when I was a child.
I don't feel great about that.
Why would you put that in? Why would you think that's okay?
No, I mean, there's already too much controversy surrounding, like, Jacob and the imprinting. You'd think she'd avoid, then, including more of that sort of stuff.
But
Maybe
no.
They could have switched it up a bit.
Yeah, they could have been
Maybe she didn't fall in love with him as a child.
No.
Seems like an easy change that could have been made.
Yeah, because that wasn't even in the original story. So Stephanie had free reign to make up their, backstory. And this is what she did with it. She made it more uncomfy, and I'm so tired of Stephanie. I'm so tired of her.
Stop it, Steph.
Stop it, Stephanie. So this is the final bit I've got for him being like a dramatic little whiny bitch. So she's reading, I think it's Sense and Sensibility in the garden at some point, and she gets really annoyed that all the Jane Austen characters are called like Edward or Edmund, and so she stops reading it. And then
wait, Bella does.
Yeah. Do you know?
So she's on. I don't remember that. She's annoyed. No. She's annoyed because they share his name.
Yeah. So she's trying to read to like distract herself from thinking about Edward.
Yeah.
And then every character, so she's like trying to flick through all the Jane Austen. She's got like a Jane Austen collection or something, and she keeps getting really irritated and flicking to like different books, because they're all have like an Edmund name situation.
You know, I just don't think that would bother me that much, because it's kind of a common name that you can't just go around being like, oh, not another Edward. It's too common for her to be that annoyed about it.
Yeah.
Also, I know. Surely she has other books other than Jane Austen. Maybe venture out a bit.
Yeah, but she really likes reading the classics. Her favourite book is Jane Eyre.
Yeah, I suppose, but here's the thing. What I think Stephanie Meyer has done is thought classics, and then only enabled Bella to read the most, like, vanilla classics available. That you're telling me, like, she couldn't have read some like Oliver Twist.
Yeah, Oliver Twist. No Dickens mentioned.
No Dickens. So okay, right. I'll let her have it. But I just think this is. It does actually happen in Grey, where they talk about classic literature, but I feel like a lot of the time when people talk about classic literature, they're just like, oh yes, Jane Austen. And I'm here to say that there's others.
As someone who's just spent 3 years looking at it, there's a few more than just...
There's others. Read something fun. I mean, I like Jane Austen, but I'm trying to think of a Jane Austen book that doesn't have an Edward in.
This was Bella's problem. She couldn't
find
one.
Is there one in Emma?
Actually, Emma might be. She doesn't like Emma, though, apparently.
Well, this is why me and Bella wouldn't get along.
Because Emma's too self-centered.
Oh my gosh, literally me. Sorry, Bella. She's my favourite. Emma has much more character than Bella.
Than Bella ever could.
Mm.
So, Edward is, like, watching Bella sleep at this point, like, every night. And he hears her say the name Edmund in her sleep, where usually she says Edward.
Right.
And, and we've been gifted with this next line, which I'm dedicating to Anne.
Oh.
So he said, "Ha! She wasn't dreaming of me after all," I realised blackly. The self-loathing returned in force. She was dreaming of fictional characters. Perhaps that had always been the case, and all along her dreams had been filled with Hugh Grant in a cravat. So much for my conceit.
Oh my God. That's Anne's dreams.
It's Anne's dream.
What? Okay. I'm still on Bella and the Jane Austen. But I think I just didn't picture Sense and Sensibility to be the one that she was obsessed with. I don't know why.
I think she says she liked Pride and Prejudice, but the 6-hour-long version with Colin Firth. Oh, wait, no, the new one hadn't come out by then, because it's 2005.
Wow. Bella's about to experience some stuff. Because, this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I don't like the long one. I don't like the long version of Pride and Prejudice.
Alison Steadman is so irritating as Mrs. Bennet. She's shrill. And I love Alison Steadman. I love Pam, I love Gavin and Stacey, but I can't listen. Like, she opens it, doesn't she? And I was like, no, we're not doing we're not doing this.
I don't like the woman that plays Lizzie. But wait, isn't she's Anastasia's mum in the movies?
Yes.
Remember when we were watching it and you were going, that's Lizzie? And I was like, what?
There's just too many crossovers, like, I can't...
Crossover!
I can't deal with it.
Lovely.
So, yeah, Hugh Grant in a cravat, that's what Edward thinks Bella's dreaming about, which, to be fair, so is Anne, our dear friend.
So is Anne, yeah.
So now we're moving on to Meyer doesn't know how internal monologues work, or she's never had an original thought in her life, i.e. side characters' jarring thoughts.
Cool. I haven't read the whole thing, I read the beginning. I felt this myself, because I don't know that internal monologues, or at least mine, doesn't work as though you're saying, like, you're not often
it's
saying
like a ticker tape,
sentences.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, you're often just like, oh, tree, wardrobe, door.
Yeah.
Like, you're not often thinking like, yes, this person looks very nice today. It doesn't quite work like that.
But even if, say she'd written them like that, that would have been better than what she has written. So prepare yourselves.
I'm preparing.
So Edward moves too quickly at one point, and he hears the thoughts of a sophomore, DJ Garrett. But I think that's his, like, for some reason he has, like, two abbreviated first, like, it's just the initials, not, this is DJ Garrett.
DJ Garrett. DJ Garrett in the house.
Can you imagine? So, sophomore DJ Garrett notices and then disregards, where did Cullen come from? It was just like he came out of thin air. There I go, with the imagination again. Mom always says, ...
There I go.
With my imagination.
Oh, bless him.
It made me laugh so much when I was reading it.
I wonder what his mum says.
What's his mum saying? Is he always got, like, is he just always distracted? He's always got his head in the clouds.
Yeah, tell us more, Stephanie.
I want to know about DJ Garrett.
Don't leave us hanging about DJ Garrett.
DJ Garrett in the house.
His dream is to be a DJ, that's why he goes by DJ.
Yeah, he's like, actually, call me, just go by my initials. It's actually DJ Garrett. So DJ Garrett. Can we get that going?
Name's just like, his name's also Edward. So for Bella's sake, he changed it because she was too uncomfortable.
Oh man!
She's like, another Edward? How will I live? He's like, it's okay. I'm planning on going by DJ anyway.
Yeah, fuck Edward. I'm going by DJ.
DJ's cooler.
So he was number one. The second one is the woman that's serving them in Bella Italia in Port Angeles.
Right.
And you know the whole thing is like she's flirting with Edward.
Yes.
But her thoughts, apparently, go like this. He can't be real. Maybe she'll disappear. Maybe I'll write my number on his plate with marinara.
What?
If somebody came out with a plate of pasta and had their number scrawled in marinara sauce on the side of the plate, what would you do? I would just...
But how would she do it? Like, that requires such precision.
I'm wondering how she's planning on, like, drawing it out as well. Does she have, like, a squeezy ketchup bottle? Or is she doing it with a spoon and it's all, like, very delicate and, like...
I'm thinking she brings, like, a paintbrush from home.
This.
Maybe, because the idea of her doing it specifically in marinara makes me think that she's probably done it before. And
yes,
so
this is her go-to. She's not like, I'm not going to write my number on the receipt. I'm going to write my number.
And maybe that's how she gets men, and I applaud her for it.
Shall we try it next time?
Yes.
No, but we don't work in a restaurant. So how do we set up the situation?
We could just dress as though we were waitresses and go up to people with food. There's nothing stopping us doing that.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's equally as weird. I think I prefer the DJ interaction because it feels sort of sad to me.
Yeah.
Whereas the waitress, I'm quite happy for her.
If this is her tried and trusted method.
Yeah.
Before social media. We should do it with, like, our handle at Culture Hang Podcast.
Marinara at the
ready. Oh, it's just the
Maybe
thought.
we could do it with a different sauce.
We should do it with, like, chocolate sauce or something. Like, it wouldn't have to be limited to...
Yeah. Well, chocolate sauce would be good because then it would dry.
Yes.
I don't know what scenario we're doing this in, but it's happening.
It's our publicity stunt. We're keeping it in the works.
Chocolate numbers.
Okay, and then the final one is the Queen herself, who even through all of Stephanie Meyer's misogyny, we love Jessica Stanley. We love Anna Kendrick as Jessica Stanley.
Love her.
So this is Jessica Stanley's thoughts when she finds out that Edward and Bella are dating. So she's like, the whole story, I'm not accepting anything less. Did they plan to meet up last night? Are they dating? How long? How could she keep this a secret? Why would she want to? It can't be a casual thing. She has to be seriously into him. I will find out. I wonder if she's made out with him. Oh, swoon.
Oh. Please tell me that no one is having internal monologues where they just repeatedly ask questions. Just rhetorical question after rhetorical question. Consistently. And then say swoon in their head.
It's swoon that really got to me. I was like, wow.
Surely you would just have an emotion that pops up in your head that sort of conveys.
Yeah. If she'd written, like, oh, or something. Like, yeah. O-O-O-H-H-H.
Yeah.
It's not correct, but
or even just some ellipses, I think, would work.
Yes.
Like, if it was like, I wonder if they'd kiss ...
Yeah.
And, like, I feel like then you'd be like, oh. Mm-hmm. But not many people are actually being like, swoon. Oh, yeah. In their head. They're just being like, uh-huh. Things are maybe people's brains work differently, and some people are just having a full-on...
like, narration.
Yeah.
Like, you've got, what's the narrator from Arrested Development? Ron Howard. Maybe you've just literally got, like, Ron Howard in your head. Want. If it's not Ron Howard, I don't want it.
Absolutely.
So that was my second selection of side characters. Nice. She's clearly never had a thought in her life, or she doesn't think the same way other people do. And then, so my third section is stop describing people as food. I don't like it, and it needs to stop. And
this is a surprise. I didn't expect this.
I've actually heard a lot of people of colour talking about how white authors always describe people as like chocolate brown, describing skin colours that aren't white as like food colours, and it's just weird and unimaginative and a bit gross.
Yeah, and I feel like they think they're doing something.
Yeah,
where they're being like, oh yeah, but no.
But Stephanie does it with Edward and Bella. So Edward describes Bella's eyes. As I stared into those oddly deep brown eyes, the colour was like milk chocolate, but the clarity was more comparable to strong tea. There was a depth and transparency.
That's strange. I've never really heard people do it so much with eyes. I've heard like people refer to eyes as chocolate coloured maybe, but the absolute depth of tea, not just food but a drink as well, makes me think that he wants to eat her eyeballs. I don't.
Or can you imagine him like slurping them up like?
Yes, I can imagine him.
I'm picturing it now.
Do you know who I can imagine doing it? Robert Pattinson. Just like slurping up some eyeballs.
So that was the first instance, and then the second instance, he describes her skin as fresh cream, and it just churned my stomach. So, not only...
just churned my stomach. Nice dairy reference.
A lot of dairy, chocolate. Just don't... Surely we can get past the point where we don't have to describe people as food anymore. Like, I get that she is food to him.
Yeah.
I get that.
It seems so unoriginal. Like, surely if you're gonna do food, maybe come up with some new references, because, like, creamy skin, chocolate eyes, tea is original.
Tea is original, we'll give her that.
You don't often get specific teas, but the rest are just very done. So if she wants to do food, maybe if she came at me with some cool new references, I'd be like, well, at least she's trying something. But the same reference that's probably been going since, like, the Victorian era.
Yeah. She looked new. Like toasted focaccia is the only thing that is coming up in my head.
She looked like toasted focaccia. She looked like carbonara sauce.
Yes, give me a white pasta sauce reference. Yes. We'll go full circle.
She looked like an omelette. she was an omelette girl. And that really did it for me. Her body was an omelette and her eyes were mushrooms. And her lips were red peppers. She was an omelette.
Oh, give me some of those patatas bravas.
Patatas bravas. I love that.
Oh, man.
See, we did better than Stephanie did in, like, a decade.
We're just improvising as well, like, this was not planned. Come on,
no,
Stephanie.
No, I planned it. I wrote that down. I planned that prior to this. I always plan to call women omelettes.
Omelettes with mushroom eyes and bell pepper lips. So now we're on to my kind of general jarring moments and general thoughts.
Whoop whoop.
Edward being weird in his car happens quite a few times. So he goes in, puts a CD on of violent music, and it's never specified, even though they do specify, like, they listen to Linkin Park and Debussy. So why doesn't she specify the violent music? I don't want to
bring this up now, because I'm going to talk about it later.
Oh, I mean, what?
In Grey, they also specify particular music in it.
What?
And it's kind of annoying, because at least... like Linkin Park, stuff like that was very 2005, very Stephanie Meyer. The stuff in Grey, I'll talk about it later, but such a variety.
Oh my god.
Such a variety.
You said, I didn't put this in my notes, but there's a point where he's like, tell me every movie you love, tell me every book. It's so boring because it's literally just her listing. She says her favourite, like, films are Vertigo, Pride and Prejudice, the 6-hour-long version one. And then she says... Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Sorry.
That's her favourite. These are her, like,
Bella.
Bella off the top of her head. Bella loves Monty Python.
I can't, I am speechless at that, because I cannot see that. One, I can't see Bella really watching a comedy.
No.
I can't see her, like, sitting down in front of The Hangover or something and
can you imagine?
And really enjoying it.
No, to be fair, we did have we had a physics teacher who was very, like, straight-laced, really quite normal, boring lady. But she put on... I mean, were we in GCSE? So maybe we were, like, 15.
Yeah.
She put on Ted, and she just, like, pissed herself the whole time. She was laughing so much. She found it hysterical. We were like... This isn't adding up. Why are you finding... You're the only person in the room who's enjoying this experience right now.
So maybe
she
Bella's
does
like that. Because, like, Monty Python's, like, a really extreme comedy as well. It's not,
like old comedy.
Yeah, over the top. Like, it's not subtle. So, definitely a lot to think about there, a lot to unpack.
A lot to unpack. So, yeah, but I just imagined Edward listening to violent music in the same way that Jen from Dead to Me goes into her car and just, like, cries to Screamo. I feel like...
Do you know what? It's either that or violent music for him is, like, some, like, really intense piano. Or a violin, maybe.
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah, he gets a violin involved, and he sort of mimes doing the violin as well.
Well...
Oh no.
That leads me on to my second point.
No!
Where he is composing Bella's lullaby in his head. So he turned down the stereo and listened to the music in my head, playing the fragments until it evolved into a fuller harmony. Automatically, my fingers moved in the air over imaginary piano keys. So he sits there... Do the do in his car alone. This is why he's weird in his car.
Can you imagine walking past him? You're like walking to school or going home, and you're like, oh look, it's Edward's car, like because he's got really intense, nice cars. So you walk up and you're about to knock on the window and say hi. He's there, just like miming, playing the piano alone.
So there's two extremes. He's either listening to violent music or he is playing an imaginary piano in his car.
Yeah.
Also, this comment was in the Twilight.
Okay.
Was in the Twilight.
In the Twilight.
Where he says, like, music in the 50s was good, much better than the 60s or the 70s. Ugh.
Ew.
Though there were certainly excellent outliers, the artists that were played most often on the limited radio options then were not my favourites. I never warmed up to discos. The 80s were bearable, which makes me feel like Edward is racist. And
yeah, I get that as well. Do you know, like, disco really wasn't for Edward.
No, it wasn't for Edward.
And I feel like if he was like, yeah, well, I don't think I was the target audience, but I appreciate it, I'd be like, oh, that's fair.
Different. It would be complete, but no.
He seems to just resent disco, and that I don't support.
No.
Here's a fun fact that, like, I once I once heard that I think is relevant because it reminds me of this. You know the band, the Bee Gees, who did Staying Alive, stuff like that? I watched a documentary on them once. I don't know why, but I did. And apparently, maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but I don't think I am. Apparently they ruined disco because disco was all about, like, sort of people who were minorities and women and
gay people,
black people, stuff like that, coming in and, like, sort of reclaiming music and, you know. And then the Bee Gees, who were these white straight men, came in and started making disco, and at that point everyone was like, well, disco's ended, and they basically ended disco.
They ended a movement. Imagine that being, like, your outlying legacy.
Yeah, that's the power they had. So that kind of, I feel like Edward was probably really happy when that happened.
When he listened to the Beach, he was like, this is it, this is the end of it now.
Yeah, he was like, yes! He had Staying Alive, and he was like, finally! And ironically, he was also staying alive.
He's like, I can vibe with this one, I get it. Like,
I relate. I too am staying alive.
So in my thing I just said, somehow this is Edward being racist, and he has no taste. Because we all know that 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, all music, there's been excellent songs from every decade.
From every decade,
You know, can't just write off a decade.
No.
Anyway.
I feel like he hates ABBA.
Even though he's the Dancing Queen.
He likes Dancing Queen. His iPod, the only songs that are rogue are Staying Alive and Dancing Queen.
Everything else he's like, no.
Everything else is like Linkin Park, classic, and then there's Dancing Queen and there's Staying Alive. Or maybe just the whole of the Bee Gees, like
back catalogue.
Yeah. Just to support them.
Yeah. He's the main reason. Maybe he worked on their, like, PR team while he was there to make sure that they stayed as relevant as they did.
Do you think he, like, in the 70s and 80s and stuff, he sort of had the looks of the time and maybe had, like, longer hair? And
I'm confused about the hair because I feel like Alice made a decision with the pixie cut. But can they grow? Does their hair grow?
Well, here's the thing. I don't know, and I feel almost like Stephanie Meyer doesn't know.
Because if they could, like, do they still? If their hair did grow, that means they would all be shaving all the time, like the guys.
And also, so say Rosalie, say she dyed, like, bleaches her hair.
Yeah.
You would never get roots. So is your hair then
just that colour?
Bleached for, like, eternity, basically. And if she then continued to, like, bleach at different colours, would it get damaged?
They do have showers.
They
do have showers after Edward has, like, one shower when he is all, like, he's been running in the woods a lot. So they run and they get dirty and then they shower.
But I just think, like, but would she be damaged? Like, would the hair be damaged?
I really don't. Maybe not. Maybe the dye wouldn't stick, or, like, the bleach wouldn't work.
Okay, also, I guess the point is that they wouldn't, like, they're so perfect, they wouldn't need to bleach their hair, but you'd get bored.
And they cut Alice's hair in the films, don't they? Like, she starts off with a pixie cut, and then it gets, like, shorter and shorter.
Yeah, and I feel like Alice would definitely be someone who has bleached bits at the front of her hair right now.
Oh,
like, if she was alive right now, she would.
Yeah.
But is that a commitment for life?
Maybe people wouldn't be so, like, ready to do it if you had to have that one hair thing for your whole life.
Or you really commit to one hairstyle. Well, to be fair, the evidence of that is Alice, because her hairstyles, they were never good.
I'm going to have short hair forever, and everyone's just got to.
And I'm going to have the worst version of short hair.
It's so bad. What were they thinking?
I have no idea.
Moving on to Alice. Alice says she is going to love Bella before Edward does. So Stephanie is so irritated at this point because she's literally like, Alice says, I'm going to love her. I love her already. I love her. She says it about 50 times.
Okay.
Quite early on.
Yeah.
And Stephanie didn't have the balls to make Alice poly or gay. Like, let them be gay.
Yes. Or, yeah.
She literally puts in lines like, I'm gonna love her someday, Jazz. I'll be very put out with you if you don't let her be. I love her too, or I will. It's not the same, but I want her around for that. Love her too.
I just don't know that I would talk about my friends like that.
It's really intense. It's like...
Yeah, I don't know that I'd be like, yeah, I love them so much. Like, no, I don't think I would. Not to that intensity. I'd be like, yeah,
no.
Love them.
Yeah,
love
like,
them.
Oh, love you guys,
girls.
But it's not.
I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I love her. She is
so. And then the image.
I don't know.
The image that she sees of Bella's future. So she sees like lots of different futures, and that's like a lot to deal with. But one of the images is Alice and Bella on the front porch. Their arms are wrapped around each other. Interesting friendship. Get lost, Stephanie. Ugh. So, but he sees them. Bella's basically a vampire, and then in another one, they see that she's not a vampire. But in every vision of Bella in the future, Alice is there, and they are like holding each other at some point. She put that in and didn't have the balls.
She could have done something.
She could have done something, like, to be that explicit and then to be like, oh, how does... even at one point she says, like, oh, I wonder what Bella will think of having Alice as a girlfriend.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. I just don't think people really use the term girlfriend.
Is it queer baiting at this point, or is it just complete...
No, I don't think it is.
Is it the opposite of queer baiting?
I don't think she had any intention to make that even slightly homosocial. I think she was probably just like, yeah, this is friendship. And everyone else reading it was like, this is love. This is like true, like, Alice is true love. Bella's true love, I think. And it would have been, like, Alice was ready to change her properly. She was going to, like, she would have been so much better for Bella than Edward. And I think Bella would have been much more happier. Yeah. In all. Yeah. So I got annoyed about that. And then special mentions for Rosalie's internal monologue. Love that. Again, like with Jessica, we have to wade through Stephanie Meyer's internalized misogyny. So a lot of it's all about, like, Rosalie being so vacant and so vapid that she's jealous that Bella... I don't know. That seems like that's probably the most realistic, like, internal monologue, because at the end of the day... You are thinking about yourself, aren't you? Yeah, someone's internal monologue isn't necessarily going to be super kind all the time. No. Because being nice isn't about, like, never having mean thoughts. It's about not saying those mean thoughts. Yeah. Not to hurt someone out loud. Yeah, probably everyone has a thought where they're like, oh, like, I'm not sure what's happening there, or they get annoyed at someone. But if you don't say it out loud, it doesn't really matter. So I'd say that's probably the most realistic. Yeah. That she would be, one, thinking of herself, two, being annoyed at people. So the one that I've heard quite a lot of people like mention is where she goes, idiot, lunatic, moron, jackass, selfish, irresponsible fool. Rosalie kept up her constant stream of insults at the top of her mental lungs. It made it hard to hear the others, but I ignored her the best I could. And then the other bit where Alice is sort of doing that, I'm going to love her too one day. Yeah. Rosalie says, Alice sees who's falling for a human, how classically Edward, she made a gagging sound. She's so iconic. I love that. I just love her so much. She deserves so much more than to be created by Stephanie Meyer, because we stan. We love we stan. I really do. I really do. Okay, so when he's like perving on Edward, on Bella in the middle of the night, he's about to leave forever, and she literally says his name once, and then he's like, I'm in love. That's the progression. That's when all that, like, Persephone, Hades bullshit happens. And it's like, okay, fine. And then his justification for it being, like, not creepy, but I certainly would not trespass on her privacy the way the peeping Tom would have. I was here for her protection, not to leer at her in the way that Mike Newton no doubt would, were he agile enough to move through the treetops. I would not treat her so crassly. Doesn't make it okay. What's that thing on, like, BuzzFeed Unsolved where it's like, cool motive, still murder? I feel like... I gotta be honest, that happens in Grey as well. I think it's kind of them, like, as authors being like, okay, we kind of need to make up for some backlash and being like, okay, here's this really bad person it makes up for our, like, love interest being a bit shady. But it never does.
No, it really doesn't. And it was really... So, the general things are, like, it's really upsetting that we didn't get more history with them. Like, we got the bits where he's explaining to Bella about, like, Carlisle's backstory, and you get a little bit more. There's a flashback where there's a few flashbacks between Edward and Carlisle. But he literally spends all of the rest of his time perving on Bella from afar. So you're basically reliving Twilight through Edward watching Bella and Charlie just chilling out around the house as they usually do. And I'm like, this is so dull. We don't have to live it. We've already lived it through one person's eyes. We don't, like, give us more flavour. And it's more enjoyable when there is the backstory.
Yeah.
Problematic comment that was in the first book that should have been cut out of the second book.
Yeah.
She says, well, except for the bad things, like all the near-death experiences, and being so clumsy that I'm almost disabled. Stephanie kept that in the book in 2020.
But she...
It's the ableism for me.
It literally... I can't get over that. But it would have been too easy to take that out. Like,
you didn't... It did... I get trying to stick to the same dialogue.
It's not even something Edward said. So if it was, like, something Edward said, and then he said it, and then in his head he'd been like, oh, no, I didn't mean to say that.
It's what Bella said.
Yeah, so we didn't need to hear it.
No.
It didn't need to be written again.
No.
Oh, okay.
So that made it past, I don't know how many different... It made it through 15 years, and how many different authors, editors she had. Yeah. Oh, when the reasoning behind him swallowing the tear at the piano... So, basically, it was he tasted it, absorbing the minute particle of her. I swallowed Bella's tear, perhaps it would never leave my body. After she left me, after all the lonely years had passed, maybe I would always have this piece of her inside of me. That's why he does that.
Not great logic, is it?
It's faulty.
Yeah. But maybe just, I don't know, maybe yank a hair out of her head or something.
She wakes up and he's, like, cutting off locks of her hair, because that's what they did in his day. Puts in a little locket and carries it around.
It's faulty logic to think that the tear would stay with him, because... No.
It really... I was like, I want to know why he did that, and now I don't want to know again. I'd rather not know. And then the ending...
Yeah.
So the whole thing is like, I wonder what Edward was doing while Bella was getting tortured by James. Fair enough. We're all waiting for it. Yeah. They have a car chase that is the most boring 80-page long car chase in the whole of existence. Where they keep getting distracted. Well, Stephanie keeps getting distracted by every single car type that goes past. And I'm not even joking. The amount of cars that are listed when they're, like, trying to find different cars. They cause, like, car pileups, being chased by the police. But it's so boring. It's so dull. That's so drawn out.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good.
It makes me think that she was trying to get a brand deal or something, because the amount of times she mentioned...
There is the exact same situation in Grey, where I was reading at points and I was like, this is unnecessary brand placement.
Yeah.
That it does seem like she is trying to get some sort of deal, or is trying to get herself a new car out of it. It seems odd.
Oh my god.
Why did they both do that?
I don't know. Maybe because of the popularity, they know a lot of people are going to read it. Oh, I don't know. But it really, really irritated me. But then, like, you're kind of thinking that would have been a really exciting moment to convey, like, the urgency. He's trying to get to her. He's really worried.
Yeah.
And they've ruined it. But then when she tries to do that kind of urgency, she ends one chapter just as he gets to the ballet studio.
Yeah.
She ends one chapter saying, I launched myself at the door. And then the next chapter opens with, through the door, as a sentence. As in, like, to convey the motion that he's gone through. And I'm like, that's not a sentence, for one.
No.
It's just bad writing.
Yeah, it seems that way.
And then my final point is about the Normanism. It couldn't help itself. But now it's fairly overt. So Bella's in hospital. Keep calling it Ella. What's wrong with me? This is what you did the other week.
Yeah. It's easy to do it.
It's wanted to say
easy.
Edward and Bella, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then, anyway. So he's in the hospital chapel. And then he starts praying. And instead of praying to his God, because he didn't believe in God anymore, I prayed to her God. Because if there was something higher, benevolent power in her universe, then surely he or she or it would have to be concerned about this bravest and kindest daughter. If not, there was really no purpose to any such entity. I had to believe she mattered to that distant God, if one existed at all. Now, saying he or she or it is not trying to be like, oh, it could just be an entity, like it doesn't have to have a gender. It's like, what's that James Acaster thing where he said, when people say he or she, it's because they forget women exist.
Yeah.
And then later he says, oh, I was praying to him, as in God. So she just ignores the fact that she was pretending to be all like, oh, it could just be an entity. It doesn't have to be like a gendered God spirit.
That's very strange.
But it's so overt, and it's like, oh, okay, Stephanie, we get it. I get it. You have a faith. I get it. We all get it by now. But to have him pray,
fair. If she'd really been like, yes, Edward is religious. Well, I guess she is. But if they'd been like, Edward is religious. This book is religious.
Yeah.
There is religious stuff in it, and she'd admitted that, and she was like, yes, my religion makes its way into the book. I don't have a problem with that.
No.
I don't like the idea that she's just being like, no, there's none of my religion in there. This is just how the world is. Because there clearly is.
Oh. Anyway, so that's a terrible history of my thoughts of
So you don't recommend people read it?
I think if you wanted to read it in bits and pieces, I think if I'd done that, I don't think I would have hated it as much. But I think because I was trying to finish it, I was like, why are you saying the same thing you've been saying for the past 50 chapters or something? Like, move on. We get it. You think you're a villain. But then also, I first read it when I was, 14, 15?
Yeah.
So I've read quite a lot of stuff since then. So maybe the magic
maybe it's worn off.
But yeah.
Also, I feel Twilight has, I reread it a lot of the time. I probably haven't reread it. Probably haven't read it since I was 14. Yeah. So I've never read it as an adult. Maybe it doesn't read well as an adult, and maybe I can't make those claims. But the movies are still good.
The movies are iconic, and I will defend them till I die.
Yeah. Yeah. I will always love you. Okay, well, we've got Grey.
I'm so excited. Please. Oh, so describe the cover to me, because
here's the cover. I'll describe it because this, you can't see this if you're listening. It says Grey at the top, and then there's a big eye.
A big grey eye.
A big eye, yes. Actually, the eye colour is a blue. It's a blue eye colour.
Is a blue.
Is a blue. And then it says at the bottom, 50 Shades of Grey, as told by Christian. As though Christian is a real person, which I quite appreciate.
His memoir.
Yeah, it's his, it's from my point of view. This is my truth.
She didn't represent me very well in the first book, so I'm going to have to explain everything.
Yeah. Okay, so it's 550 pages. I haven't read the trilogy. Also, I didn't know, but there is a second one of these. There is the second book from his point of view.
Are you joking? Why?
Don't know. But anyway, let's get down to business. I haven't really planned what I'm saying because it took me so long to read this book that by the time I got to the end, I was like, oh, okay. But I have written notes in it, and I've put sticky notes.
This is basically like a shit seminar, isn't it? It's like...
Yeah, that's how I'm viewing it. So, also, I've put my microphone down precariously, so I hope this is all hearable, which is a word. Anyway, so I'll run you through the plot, I guess, but
I'm excited,
on my favourite bits. The plot is kind of the same as 50 Shades of Grey, from what I've gathered from the movie. What I would say about this book, if you've read 50 Shades of Grey, there's probably no point reading this. I don't think so. Anyway, so my first favourite page, or 2 pages, is just a random page. It starts off with, for a bit, he keeps going about his personal trainer.
Oh.
Yeah, and his personal trainer's making him go and play golf with him. His personal trainer's called Bastille.
No.
Yeah, anyway, Christian keeps going on about how much he hates golf, which is just pointless information to me, but he just gets so really angry at the fact he has to go play golf with Bastille. Anyway, then we get, like, our first mention of Elena, the pervert.
Oh, yes.
And I didn't know this, maybe this is in the books, but she is the one that finds the submissives for him. So, yeah, she finds them all, which made me uncomfy. I didn't like that.
So she's already a paedophile predator?
Yeah. And then she just, like, gets women who are, like, trained in being submissive, or have done it before, and brings them to him.
Oh.
And that's why when he just finds his own girl...
it's a problem.
Anna. Yeah.
His own girl. The main...
His own girl. You know her. And then, this is why I like this page, then we get to the bottom. He's already met Anna at this point, but not for long, so... But he is in his library pondering over which original book he should send to her, original copy. Because if you remember...
He's just got them in his...
Yeah.
What?
So, if you remember, because it happened in the movie, he sends her, like, an original edition of...
Yeah.
The first edition, Tess of D'Urberville.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know why in my head I thought, like, oh, he's sending that to her and that'll be the end of it. He, firstly, thinks about it a lot, and he doesn't know whether to send her Jude the Obscure or Tess.
Why would you send Jude?
Exactly.
Oh, that's the most depressing book in the world.
But luckily he agrees with you and thinks no to Jude the Obscure, because I have read Jude the Obscure. If someone sent it to me, I would. I mean, she returns it anyway, but I would return it immediately.
What would you think they were trying to tell you if they were sending you Jude the Obscure?
I'm destined to a life of unhappiness. That's what I think.
It's a bad omen.
If someone sent me any Thomas Hardy book, I would be like, this is a threat. This is not a nice thing. I like Thomas Hardy, but unless it was Far From the Madding Crowd.
But that still has darkness in it.
Yeah, and I'd just be like, you're a bit boring. Because
yeah.
At least if you're sending Jude the Obscure, you're a bit spicy. Anyway, he compares himself to Hardy. He says, Thomas Hardy does. He says, Hardy had a dark, twisted soul, like me. Which I think is a really nice comparison. You know, just compare yourself to one of the greatest writers, that's okay. He acknowledges that Tess is not one of the most romantic books, but he's sending it as a warning, which I think explains it a bit more for me why he sent that. But also, so the reason he has the original copies or whatever is the first editions is because kind of like as an accessory he likes to have things. If you don't know, he's rich. It's kind of made clear throughout. He likes to have things. So I thought he'd probably just send it to her and then deal with that. But he sends it and then immediately makes someone get him another first edition. So...
Oh, no.
Yeah, which I find weird. He's not even bothered about it.
So it doesn't even...
He did used to read when he was younger. So he does like reading, but...
It has no meaning if you're literally just going to... The whole point is like, oh, I've loved this so much, so I'm going to give it to you because it means something to me. Not just, go out and buy me another copy, because I'm so rich it doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
Oh,
anyway,
Christian.
Well, at that point he's kind of like, I never really want to see this girl again. Which, okay, that's why he's trying to get away with that. Anyway, then we move on to my favourite chapter. I would tell you which chapter it is, but they don't have chapter numbers, they just have dates. So I don't know which chapter it is.
Fair enough, yeah.
But it's the part of the book where... Anna's out with her friends, having a bit of a club night. She's drinking, and then he calls her. No, she's drunk, turns up. But you get it from his point of view. So my favourite bit is how ridiculously worried he is. She hasn't signed anything, hasn't agreed to anything. She calls him up, she's like, I don't want the darn books. And he realises she's drunk, is asking which bar she's at, and then says, anxiety blooms in my gut. She's a young woman, drunk, somewhere in Portland. She's not safe. I just thought...
Oh my! She's not safe from you.
She's fine. She's literally fine.
She's with her friends.
She's vibing. She's having a night out.
Yeah.
She's drinking. She's allowed. She's 21. She's legal. She'd never been drunk before this instance.
What?
Yeah, she's boring. But
she's so dull. I'm sorry.
Well, here's the thing. She's not. Her character doesn't make sense. It's built up that she's like never done anything. She's boring, but she's not. She's really fun. She seems nice. I actually think her character is well written. I would say that she is probably the best thing about this book. Well, actually, the character's not very well written, but she's definitely the best thing about this book because she seems to have relatively rational reactions, and you kind of understand why she's doing everything. And anyway, so he's just getting mad. And then she laughs at him. This is always an issue for him. She continually laughs at him, which is another reason I love her. He'll be doing like some annoying stuff, and she just laughs, and he gets super annoyed. And then she hangs up on him, and he's Red flag. No one has ever hung up on me. No one in his whole life has ever hung up on him. So he calls her back, and then like says one thing, and then hangs up. And I'm convinced he did it just so he could hang up on her, so he wouldn't have been hung up on. So then he goes on about how, like, this is what I mean about, I feel like she's trying to make up for him being, like, bad in terms of tracking where she is and then following her to where she is. Because he's going on about, I know this is outside the law, but she could be getting herself into trouble. And, like, it's all like, oh, I'm worried that men will be taking advantage of her, basically. But he's kind of the one that's doing the bad thing. So, I feel like they're trying to make it seem like he's not that bad because other men are terrible.
But he's actually bad.
Because as you know, he gets there. Jose is there. I want to call him Jacob, but it's Jose's there trying to kiss her and she's saying no. And then they kind of use that to justify him being an actual stalker. And he's like says in his head, she doesn't want this. And I just kind of wrote by it, it's not really the time to have, like, take the higher moral ground, because she didn't really want you to turn up on her, like, ladies' night. Anyway, then she just vomits on the ground. And this is another bit
We've all been there.
Well, yeah, exactly. He acts like that's something crazy to do, but she just vomits. And he says, it's with some annoyance that I note she doesn't appear to have eaten. So, what I got from that is, he was inspecting
He's looked at her vomit.
And also, what I get from that is, I don't think that that's technically right, because, here's the thing, a lot of people have vomited on me in the past. It's not something I'm bragging about, but it has happened. And
trauma time with Hannah every time she was vomited.
Let's get into it. But anyway, it's, you can't tell if someone's not eaten, is what I'm saying. No. You can't really tell.
You can't tell from the smell, you can't tell from the texture, like,
because I
genuinely.
have had someone be sick on me who said, like, oh, it's because I hadn't eaten, so, like, then they were drinking and they were like, oh, I was sick because I hadn't eaten anything, blah, blah, blah. You couldn't tell. Like, okay. So that doesn't make sense. Yeah, he gets her, he then says, she's apologising, and he says, we've all been here, which is kind of a nice thing to say, but then says, perhaps not quite as dramatically as you. And again, I just think it's not that dramatic.
Why is he shaming her for literally
I don't know why he thinks it's super dramatic. She was just sick outside the club.
That's low-key drama.
Yeah, I've seen it happen several times. And it's happened on me. The amount of times I've had to, like, take a friend out of the club, sit them down against a wall, be told to move them to a different wall, sit them against that wall, and then have them throw up on me. Shocking amounts of times it happened.
When was the last time it happened?
I want to say... Oh, when did we go to Fruity last? Oh, no, it happened after that. Shout out to Emily. Sorry to tell your story, Emily, but Emily was going to be sick in an Uber on her way out
my God.
On Halloween.
Yes.
And she was wearing a hat. I'm really sorry to tell this, Emily. And she said to me, I'm going to be sick. And I I'd ordered the Uber. I didn't want to be fined.
No.
So I grabbed the hat off her head, shoved it into her face, and just felt as she vomited into the hat, and then held on to the hat.
Oh.
And then when she was like, I'm fine, I can go into the club, took her into the club. We get in. Immediately, I need to go to the toilet so I can be sick. I'm dragging her to the toilet.
Oh, I remember
There's
this.
a massive queue. I take her to the front of the queue and I'm like to the person who's attending the toilet to say, please can my friend go in, she's about to be sick. The one's like, no cutting. And just as she says that, Emily's just sick on the floor outside the toilet.
Right in front of the woman that said that you can't come in. And we were like, she wasn't faking it. Look at her. She's just
a power move. But the thing is, like, I wouldn't even say to her that that's dramatic. I honestly think that's normal. That's normal behaviour.
That's standard.
But he seems, if she did that in front of Christian Grey, he would be shocked.
He would probably faint because he didn't know how to handle it.
Well, following this, he jumps to the conclusion that perhaps she has a problem with alcohol.
What?
And then he says, I consider whether I should call my mother for a referral to a detox clinic. So anyway, love that chapter. It's kind of, I was bored up until that chapter. It happens on, like, after page 50. I was kind of bored. When it gets to that bit, I was like, yes, this is the wildness I was expecting. And then he says that he takes Anna back to his place, his hotel that he's staying in, because he wanted to be close to her anyway, I don't know. So, brings her back to his hotel, takes off her jeans because they're sick on them, but that's still not okay.
Not okay.
Puts her in his bed, then continues to sleep in that bed as well.
No.
But before that, he brings up about, like, he wants a background check done on Jose. So he asks for that because he wants to know if he preys on drunk young women all the time. So again, it's like them being like, oh, look how bad Jose is compared to me, who's just brought this girl back into my hotel
and taking her jeans off.
Taking her jeans off, all without consent. Then sends an email to his right-hand man and is like, you need to get all these clothes for Anastasia, even though they could have just washed them. He asks for literally every bit of clothing, including her lingerie, which arguably got no vomit on Owl. I don't see how it would have. And he estimates all her sizing, and he estimates her bra size, which he estimates at a 34C. Apparently it fits perfectly, but there we go. Bit of a weird one from him.
Oh, he's so creepy. I knew he was creepy.
Yeah.
But hearing his, like, methods and his reasoning, it's, like, 10 times worse.
Yeah. And then, so here's the thing. This is where this starts. The writing is odd in that it's written very colloquially, which is fine. Don't have an issue with that. That's kind of what you would want from the book. But occasionally, it's kind of like she's checked for synopsises, for synonyms on certain words.
Oh no.
So they'll be talking very colloquially, and then Anna or Christian will say, like, here, that's very profligate of you. And it just comes out of nowhere. Yeah, comes out of nowhere. And then a few lines underneath, he gets really stressed out because her hair's wet and he's not got a hairdryer. And he thinks he's going to get sick. Anyway, another example of the word thing is he says, for all her maladroitness. And
what does that mean?
No idea, for one. But it's stuff like that it'll be very colloquial speech. And then suddenly it genuinely seems like she's just been like, I should throw in a fancy
special word.
Yeah. And then here's one of my favourite like music mentions that they do throughout the book. He says, we both listen, because they're in the car listening to music, now lost in the raw sound of the Kings of Leon.
Oh my god!
The raw sounds of Kings of Leon.
The raw sounds.
Honestly, I've picked out two of my favourite, like, music mentions. The other one comes later on and it's better than that one, but the music he brings up is so very strange. None of it's similar. Okay, then I don't know. Again, it's another bit where the writing's strange. One of the things that annoys me most about this book is Christian's absolute obsession with his helicopter, which is called Charlie Tango, and he talks about it more than he talks about Anastasia in the first bit of the book. I feel every page has a mention to Charlie Tango. It's annoying.
Oh my God.
And then, so there's this scene where he's taking Anna on Charlie Tango with him, which is something he's never done before, so it's a big deal. And there's a whole paragraph where he just talks about how he does, like, the checks and how he flies Charlie Tango. And it just is super boring because nobody cares about how this
Charlie
honestly,
Tango.
No, like, this is meant to be a really saucy book. Nothing, like, of the sorts has happened yet. And now I'm listening to a paragraph of him just talking about how he starts Charlie Tango. And once they've given us clearance, I do my final checks. Oil temperature is at 104. Good. Increase the manifold pressure to 14. The engine is at 2,500 RPM and pull back on the throttle. That's just a bit of it. I don't care.
What's the obsession with that? Because it's like, is it that to show off that she's researched how to fly a helicopter, or she maybe can fly a helicopter now?
I have no idea, and it kind of brings me into a point I have about this book that sometimes it feels as if it's written by a man. It doesn't feel as though she's written it at points, and particularly with the description of Anastasia, it doesn't feel like a woman's written it. Doesn't feel like a woman's written any of it in terms of, like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, there's not even a lot of sex in it, but there is sex in it, and it never feels like it's written by a woman, because it doesn't seem to understand female pleasure in the slightest. Like, it's very strange, and when I read the stuff about helicopters and cars, I'm like, this doesn't feel like any woman could have written this, because
it's so dull.
Why would they care?
Yeah.
Like, this is meant to be, like, this, like, sexy book for women. It doesn't read that way, like, a lot of the time. And then, here's the positives. One of the positives. There are some bits that are actually interesting in the book.
Ooh.
And it's generally when he has flashbacks to his childhood. So, he has some negative ones, but because he's with Anna, like, he tends to have more positive ones, which is quite nice. Like, there's stuff where, like, he wakes up and he says how she smells of apples, and he has these flashbacks to, you know, being with his family and having, like, and they're quite cute. And then there's this one, because obviously if you didn't know, he doesn't have the best upbringing because he's adopted. His mum is, I think, a prostitute. He calls her a crack whore. He's abused.
Oh dear.
Yeah, he's abused by his mum's pimp. He's then adopted, and then the Elena gets
her claws in him.
Yeah, but when he's adopted, he's mute, like, he doesn't talk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there's loads of lovely bits about, like, him slowly, like, coming to trust the new family, which are the best bits, and they're really cute, and I don't know why they didn't do more of them, because sometimes it's like, surely all this information was in 50 Shades of Grey, but this couldn't have been, and they should have done more of this. So there's this one where Anastasia says that she's awed by him, and then he flashes back to his mum saying that she's awed by him because he's started speaking and he could read this book, and he reads the book out loud, and she's awed by him doing that, which is lovely.
That's so nice.
Yeah. There's some bits where I read them and I genuinely thought, this is really sweet. It makes you feel a bit of sympathy for him. And then, like, it just stops doing it, and then I had to read about Charlie Tango again, about a sentence underneath. And then he goes on about... And then here's another thing. I've not even got there yet, but whenever he finds out that she's a virgin and he goes crazy, just randomly, they have sex, which is vanilla, which he goes on about how he's never done that before, never would, hates all this relationship crap.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, if that's your lifestyle, fine. He kind of makes it clear that he just can't do love properly. But the first time that he has sex with her, afterwards he repeatedly is like, that's the best sex I've ever had. So it makes no sense why then I have to sit through another, like 400 pages of him being like, yeah, no, that lifestyle isn't for me, like, I only have submissives, I don't do relationships, when he repeatedly does things that are, like, normal relationship-y things, and enjoys them, and vocally says, in his writing, I enjoyed that. That was better than usual. Anyway, that annoyed me. Then this becomes a bit of a mystery for me. She asks him if he's ever hurt anyone, like, you know, badly, I guess, not in the fun way. And
Hannah explaining BDSM, but in a clean way. Have anyone hurt anyone? Not in the fun way.
Not in the fun way. He's like, no. And then in his, like, internal monologue says, Dawn was fine, if a little shaken by the experience, and if I'm honest, so was I. But you don't know what the experience is.
Right.
And that stayed with me for a long time, because I didn't know what happened to Dawn, what went on. Anyway, I think you find out later on in the book, but you still don't fully find out. Basically, I think they were doing the suspension stuff, and he had her tied up and, like, suspending her from the ceiling, but one of the ropes was too tight. But it doesn't say, like, what the outcome of that was that left them so shaken by it, because if the rope was just too tight, couldn't she just have said, oh, too tight, can you retie it? Like, I don't know why. It makes me think something more happened with Dawn, and it kind of made me think about that throughout the book, so never really got over that one.
I'm starting to think that, like, do you think she maybe, like, lost her hand? Because if it was a circulation...
What I thought, but surely she couldn't. I literally thought the same thing, because I was like, when he said that she was shocked and he was shocked, I was thinking, just it being too tight wouldn't be that shocking.
No.
So what happened? And the only thing I think of is, like...
she lost her hand.
Her hand! Anyway, that really... I thought about that throughout the book, and I was really sad when I didn't find out finally. Okay, and then it starts with him going on about his Audi all the time.
Oh, what is the obsession? Like, what's the point? It didn't add anything. It was supposed to be a car chase, and they were just getting distracted by what car they were going to steal, and it's like...
That's weird.
Yeah.
What, like, in a car chase, you wouldn't be like, oh, nice cars. But this one, again, doesn't, like, scream this was written by a woman to me, because Anastasia gets in the car, and she's like, so what sort of car is this? And I don't think I've ever got into a car and been like, unless you could make absolutely no conversation, being like, what sort of car is this? And then he's like, it's an Audi R8 Spider, and, like, it's a lovely day, we can take the top down, and it just seems like an ad for the car.
Maybe it is.
It did read that way, not gonna lie. Okay. Then I'm just picking out random bits that I loved, because there's one bit, he's settling in for a night alone of reading. And he says, picking up my latest read, I settle onto the sofa, and then describes maybe the wildest book premise ever. It's a book by two renowned economists who examine why the poor think and behave the way they do.
What kind of...
I literally read that and said, what? I've written what next to it. Why? What does it mean? Why do poor think and behave the way they do?
Oh my god.
It seems wrong, is what it seems. So I was shocked by that. And then, kept reading. Kind of nothing exciting has happened. At this point, they've had sex. She says that maybe she'll give it a go. He sends her the contract. About 176 pages in, it includes the whole contract, which I'm assuming isn't included in the normal book. And immediately as I saw it, I went to skip it because I have no interest in reading it, and then thought I should probably read it in case there's anything exciting. So the only bits I picked up on, it's kind of what you'd expect. And again, this must be mentioned in the normal book. She has to eat from a prescribed list of foods, and it just seems like a lot of work. She's not allowed to snack between meals, with the exception of fruit. Why? Imagine she's 21, she's just hanging with her friends. She's trying to have some popcorn with a movie, and she's not allowed.
But why?
She has to, I don't know, just so she's in good health, and because she has to exercise, and then also she has to keep herself clean and shaved and all waxed at all times. How much work is that? No one's doing that. She can't drink to excess, smoke, take recreational drugs, or put herself in any unnecessary danger, which again, just super boring. Then it just goes on to the things like, does she consent to do a bunch of this stuff? Again, kind of what you'd think.
A bunch of this stuff.
Yeah, just like a bunch of stuff. There's nothing very surprising. Again, for something that's meant to be like really wild, it kind of talks a lot about these like crazy things he could do to her, but they never do them. Like, the most you're getting in this book is him like whipping her, and that's it. Okay, then this is why Anastasia is a likeable character, I feel. She immediately comes back with, just tears it apart, basically. The whole contract. She's like, yeah, don't like it. She says he wants her to commit to be with him every weekend. She says, I do have a life, so no, basically. He says that she can't touch herself, basically. And she says, what's the problem with this? She gets annoyed because she's not allowed to look in his eyes. She keeps asking why she can't touch him. She only agrees because he wants her to have 8 hours of sleep each night. She says, I'll only do 6.
I'm sorry, she can't look at him in his eyes?
Yeah, because he wants to feel power over her, so she has to look down.
But don't you think he should examine himself so that he could... Well,
this is exactly what Anna says to him. Like, so repeatedly in this book, she says, see a therapist, and he always replies, I'm seeing one. But the whole, like, most of the book, the therapist is on holiday.
Oh, like no.
It's a genuine thing that she's always like, go see a therapist, and
that's
he's
incredible.
Like, I can't, he's on holiday. And then I think by the time like Anna's left and she's not over him, but she's left, the therapist's finally back, or something like that. So yeah, she then says that she's not eating the food from the prescribed list. She goes, the food list goes, or I do, deal breaker, which I really enjoy. And here's the thing, I found it weird for the majority of the book that repeatedly she does not eat. Up until about 300 pages in, the girl has not eaten a thing. They'll go out for a meal, and she'll be like, yeah, I'm not eating this. And he'll be like, have you eaten? She'll be like, no. Have you eaten at all today? No. That goes on for way too long. She does not eat a thing for so long. And also, I realised at some point that the whole, like, happenings of the book goes on over only a couple of weeks. So there's definitely, it's a very short period of time that this happens over.
Oh my god.
Because she keeps referring to, like, oh yeah, the first time I had sex was a week ago, and it's been, like, hundreds of pages.
It's been so long.
Yeah, so then at this point, we're 188 pages in, the book becomes majorly email.
Oh my god.
You maybe would get a bit of writing, and then it will be email again. And like here, there's a really nice bit where he's talking about his brother and when they were younger, and how his brother's like throwing away food when it's not eaten. He has a thing about wasted food because he was so hungry as a child, and they had a fight. And that's like it's a really nice bit of information. But then immediately you just get into more emails and stuff like that. So we're not even halfway through basically, but it's kind of the same thing. Again, another instance of him being like, are you hungry to her? She's like, no. He says, have you eaten today? She says, no.
Why would she eat?
Yeah, so I found that super weird because there's no reasoning for why she doesn't eat, but later on she says, I didn't eat because essentially I was scared for you, really. Or like I was really nervous around you. Which makes more sense, but doesn't like reflect well on him.
No. Why would he be, that he would be like judgmental and picking on her for what she eats?
I think it was a situation of like she was so stressed around him that she didn't feel hungry. Yeah, There's more emails. He is emailing someone about an Audi. He buys her, like... He's buying her an Audi. He buys her a laptop. He buys her a phone. Every time he does it, she says no. I don't know why he continually does it. She gets upset every time.
In a couple of weeks, though, I get, like, if you had, like, an infinite amount of money means something different.
Yeah.
However, if you've got to listen to the person, not just thinking, oh, I think this is a good idea. And then if that person expressly says to you, nope, no, don't like that, over and over and over again, and he continues to do it.
Because he says to her early on, he's like, I have enough money, I can buy all this stuff. And she's like, yes, but I don't like it. And then he never listens until she gets to a point where she says, when you buy me things, I feel like you're paying me for sex. And at that point, he's like, oh, I don't really like that, so maybe I'll stop.
Maybe I'll stop.
Then there's a whole page of him talking to her dad about fishing, which, again, super boring, don't care. And then, okay, the emails get funny because he kind of does... He takes jokes too far. I don't think he really understands. He keeps taking things too far. And there's one point where they're kind of having a bit of banter over email. He takes things a bit far, and I don't know what he says. I can't really remember. It probably wasn't that interesting. And she responds to his email. Again, a likeable character says, Dear Mr. Grey, I'm not sure I like you anyway, especially at the moment. That's the end of the email. He gets really upset about that, sends her an email back that just says, why don't you like me?
Oh, no.
Well, it made me laugh. I had to laugh. And
that's so whingy.
That's the sort of thing, like, there's terrible bits like that, and then there's one of the most lovely bits, and I just don't understand why there wasn't more like this. He's going to pick his sister up from the airport, and he has this memory of when she's a baby, and he's, like, holding her all the time, and his brother doesn't really like the baby, but he wants to hold her all the time, and when she cries, he wants to, like, help her. And then he says her name, and that's the first thing he says. That's the first word he says with the family, and his mum's like so happy and she's crying, and and it's so sweet, and I don't know why there wasn't more of that. Like, I read that and I thought that, like, I'm invested in that.
Yeah, that hits you, doesn't it? That, like, really...
But then the bit with his sister isn't even that long, but his sister just seems to be a carbon copy of Alice, but a little more annoying, so there's nothing much interesting there. He does another thing where he takes an email joke too far, where he basically books her into a first-class flight that she didn't ask for, didn't want. And she gets there and she's annoyed at him, so she sends him an email being like, didn't want this, but thanks, I've had a nice massage by this man who's, like, really attractive.
On the flight?
Yeah, no. What do you call it when you, like... Oh, it's a first-class lounge. So she went into the first-class lounge.
Oh, I thought you meant, like, on the aeroplane.
I thought that as well, because they don't specifically explain, but I assume it's in the lounge. So she has that. She's like, yeah, this sexy man did me a massage. It was lovely. He gets jealous, but they're kind of joking. And then he says that next time she can go in the cargo hold of the plane, bound and gagged in a crate. She responds being like, I don't like this, please no. And she says, I have no idea if you're joking. Crates are a hard limit for me. Sorry I made you mad. Like, and he says, he doesn't, in his head, he says, of course I was joking, ... sort of, but then later on is like, yeah, of course I was joking, how did she not think I was joking? She then sends a massive email back, because he really upset her.
Oh my god.
And he's basically like, you can't write things like that to me, bound and gagged in a crate, were you serious or is it a joke? That scares me, you scare me. Which... Again, does not reflect well on him as a character, but they get over it. Maybe they, I don't know. They have the whole book's kind of a tense relationship, but then they're never super happy.
No.
Then he goes for dinner with Elena at one point, and so here's the thing. Elena's just stirring the pot, Because Anna's gone to visit her mum because she's like, I need time away from you to consider if I actually want to do this because I feel overwhelmed after the whole bound and gagged in the plane thing. So she goes to see her mum. He's pretty angry about it, but he's chill with it. Goes for dinner with Elena. Elena's like, you need to... First up, she's like, are you sure you don't want to meet the girl that I think should be submissive? And he's like, no, God. I'm pretty happy with this gal. And then I think she does this to Silas Pot, because she's like, oh, you should definitely go visit Anastasia. And he's like, no, I don't think that's a good idea, because she's gone specifically to get away from me. And she's like, no, you should go, you'll convince her that she should be with you, you'll use your charm. And again, I think this is kind of a way of, like, EL to, like, explain his behaviour, because for a lot of people that was kind of not the worst thing he did, but one of the bad things that she was just trying to hang with her mum, and he, like, stalked her, found the hotel she was at, and went, but in the book it kind of, like, puts the blame on Elena, because he's the one that's kind of like, no, I don't think that's a good idea, and Elena convinces him into it. But basically Anastasia finds out that he went for dinner with Elena, and he's like, yeah, it's just Elena, it's really chill, and she says, she's not just an old friend. Has she found another adolescent boy to sink her teeth into? Did you get too old for her? Is that the reason your relationship finished? Absolute savage. Not interested in his feelings.
Spilling that truth to... I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed with this. Like, why does she give into it? Was it because she'd set up the thing that it was like, they have to end up together? That's the whole point. But if Anastasia is saying all the right things, she's paying attention to the warning signs, she's saying, like, no, this is not okay.
Yeah.
Why?
Exactly. The idea is, I've grasped from the book, is that she never really gives in to him, even though she does a bit. And that he is actually conceding a lot more to her, because he's doing a bunch of stuff he doesn't want to do. But he's enjoying everything he's doing, so I don't feel bad for him in any way.
No.
I don't have any well, except for the bits where you do feel a bit of sympathy for him, and it's like, oh, this could be a complex character, and then he's just the worst. Anyway, then so she said all that stuff about Elena, which is fully true, and he just gets really angry, and she's like, he says, how dare she?
But it's true.
Annoyed. Yeah, fully true. And then to justify it, he's like, her latest, like, submissive man, he is called Isaac, and he's like, Isaac is in his late 20s. Like, that makes it okay that she was a full-on paedophile.
Oh my God.
And then, the best line in the book, so he, like, shocks her wherever she is, she's getting annoyed at him, she's angry, she's asking if him and Elena are in love, blah, blah, blah. She's really angry, and he says, that girl provokes me like no one has before, and she's pissed at me. Maybe she has PMS. She said her period was due this week.
Oh my God. The audacity.
I know, and every bit of anger she has, perfectly rational. She's never irrational.
No.
And he's like, yeah, probably just PMS.
She's just on her period.
And again, it just doesn't seem like that line would ever be written by a woman.
No.
I would hope it never would be. Anyway, the trip ends up working out because they end up being happy, and she's like, okay, when I go home, you can do your worst. Oh, no, before that happens, they're driving again. Here's my second favourite music mention. They get in the car. I assume this happens in the book, the other book, but they get in the car and she puts his iPod on shuffle or something, and Toxic by Britney Spears plays.
Oh my God.
Now he explains that, like, it was one of his past submissives put that on his phone.
Okay.
But what made me laugh is just the fact they're sat in silence in the car listening to Britney, and to quote him, he says, as Britney continues at her sultry best, Anna drums her fingers on her thigh. Like, they're just sat in silence. That's just silence. Toxic, Britney Spears playing. I listened to the song this morning.
Yeah.
I was trying to picture it in my head, them just sat in the car. It's impossible. The image does not exist. So, after that, I maybe made a few notes, but I didn't stick any more stuff in because it just gets ridiculously boring. She's like, do your worst to me. He does his worst. She's like, why do you ever want to do that to me? That's absolutely horrible. He gets upset, but she's like, that's horrible. I never want you to do that again.
Fair enough.
She gets really angry with him. She leaves, and then she leaves forever. And then, so where the movie finishes, don't know about the book, is with
the lift.
She says, Christian, he says Anastasia, she's gone. She's out of his life. That happens in the book, and then there's 50 more pages.
Oh my god.
So basically it sort of just leads up more to the second book and film.
Right.
So it ends kind of probably a chapter into that book, really.
Yeah.
With him just being super sad.
No.
Just 50 pages of him being sad continually, and then eventually he's like, I think the last word is yeah, I'm gonna go get her back. That's what I'm gonna get you, the last word. Yeah, I wake up with a start today, I win her back, and he's decided he's gonna be less creepy, I think. And that's it. That's the book.
Wow.
Yeah. I think my main takeaways from it is doesn't feel like it's written by a woman, for one. I don't know, I feel like maybe her husband could have had some
input,
because I read the description of E.L. James at the end, and her husband is a novelist and a screenwriter.
Oh.
So I feel like maybe it could have been co-written, or maybe had some
influence,
more input into it, because there's so much about how teeny tiny Anastasia is, and she's the lightest thing ever, and she never eats, and she's this teeny little fragile thing. And then but she has pretty big boobs, and she's got kind of a big bum, and she's teeny tiny little innocent thing, and then she's not. But she's the most innocent thing, but she's not. And it's everything is, it's that sort of
male fantasy.
Virgin whole fantasy.
Yeah.
They want her to be the most innocent thing, but at the same time she's completely
the
ready
dirtiest.
for anything.
Yeah.
Oh, and guess what? She doesn't have a gag reflex, and it doesn't feel like it's written by a woman. It feels like Anastasia's some sort of fantasy that that men would have, rather than Christian's a fantasy that women would have. I guess there's bits of him that are that would be enticing, and honestly, as a 21-year-old, if a man came to me and was have all these things, I probably would be yeah, that seems fair. That, it wasn't he wasn't enticing in the slightest, but any of the bits where they were having sex, honestly, I skipped through them. I didn't find them interesting in the slightest. I was just honestly, do you want to read sex scenes written by men? Because I don't.
No.
So that the constant car and helicopter chat, don't care. And it was kind of the writing felt like it was choppy, because they were inserting emails constantly towards the end. It didn't feel like there was much writing anymore. So there was just emails.
That's so bizarre. That's really
that's annoying, because it had potential to not be terrible. That's why I didn't think it was terrible, and I felt like I'd read worse things, because the bits that were nice, and him being, when he felt like a complex character, were really good. And Anastasia reads as a pretty likeable character. And
she does.
There's so much of, he fully hates her best friend. He hates on her so much. And he's always I don't think she's as good a friend to Anastasia as Anastasia is to her. But there's so much evidence of them being good friends to each other, and Kate being annoyed at him because he's upsetting Anastasia, and Anastasia wanting to check on Kate and make sure she's okay. There's so much that has potential, and then there's so much that ruins that potential. But honestly, I didn't hate reading it, and I feel like if I had more time I would have read it, and I still would have hated on some bits a lot, but I would have read some bits and been well, this isn't the worst literature I've ever read. And what did she say? And the bit that's in the movie, and I guess the book, that makes me laugh so much, about her going into the Red Room and asking if there's going to be Xboxes in there. Still in there. Still excellent prose. honestly,
wow.
Some bits genuinely nice, some bits I enjoyed. Other bits thought, this is terrible, this is setting women back about 50 years. Other bits I thought, this is really good, like, pretty empowering. The idea of it, good. The execution, not great.
Isn't it mental that they can just coexist in the same book? But maybe that's what leans into it feeling like it's been written by not necessarily the same person the whole way through. Because if, say when she proposed it, they were like, oh, write a book and men will read it so they can, if their partners, like, loved it, wanted to, like, get on the thing of it, so they were like, oh, well, we need to have it from the male point of view.
That would make sense.
As a marketing thing.
It just, the thing that throws me off that, though, is the fact that, like, the original 50 Shades, obviously, is fan fiction. So, was she maybe writing bits and then getting a husband to proofread, and he was, like, adding bits in, and then when she did this, it was a similar situation? The fan fiction throws me off this, because as I read it, there are references to Twilight. There's so much of him being like, I wish I could read her mind, which obviously is a reference. No. But none of the characters seem to match up very much, so I think her best friend Kate is meant to be Rosalie, but it doesn't, it works sometimes, but then fully doesn't. His sister is fully meant to be Alice, but I don't really know who the brother's meant to be. I assume Emmett, because he ends up with Kate, and he has kind of Emmett energy, which, side note, Emma and Kate are a much cuter couple. Like, I would have liked to hear more about them, because there's bits with them together, and it seems quite sweet. But I don't know who Jasper would be. Couldn't get that. Jacob's Jose, but he's not really a big part of it like Jacob is.
And then they're still doing that, like, kind of racial difference. You know?
Because
like all these white people, and then
Jose, who when they checked his records had like marijuana possession on his records. And then I was going to call them Edward and Bella. Christian and Anastasia don't fit into Edward and Bella very well. Like, Anastasia, there's all this stuff at the beginning about how shy and clumsy she is, but it's not consistent in the book. Like, she's not shy. She's repeatedly not shy. She speaks her mind consistently. She talks back to Christian way more than Bella ever talked back to Edward. I keep messing their names up. And Christian's nowhere close to being Edward.
No.
Not like, the characters
don't match up.
Can't exist.
I do think that, because I mean, I was very harsh on Midnight Sun, but they do have a lot more, like, banter, I suppose, Edward and Bella in the books, and they do seem to like each other more, which they just didn't show in the films, and that's why the films get hated on so much, because they're all just so intense. And yes, that intensity's there, but they do have, like, jokes around each other quite a lot, and they're always, like, laughing and smiling with each other, and you're like, well, that's a nice thing. They like being around each other. Yeah, that's kind of the same
in here, that, like, because I've not read the other book, but I was surprised at, like, how often they have, like, jokes together, and Christian finds Anna to be the most funny person ever. Every time she sends him an email, he says it's hilarious, and one of the reasons that he's upset when she leaves is he's going to get no more of the funny emails, because he just thinks her emails are hilarious. And to be fair, they're pretty good emails, but they're nothing to write home about. But I also, like, I get that, because I was surprised, because I think they probably missed that from both the movies, that these people actually had a relationship that wasn't 100% problematic all of the time.
Yeah.
It just was a lot of the time, but sometimes they were genuinely nice couples.
Yeah.
Which is why people liked it initially.
Without the intensity, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
wow.
We did it.
We made it through.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed listening. This will be super long for our super long episodes.
But you can't really talk about two 500 to 700 page long books in a short amount of time, can you?
You really can't.
So, I don't know, we did it. Be happy for us. We read those books for you, not for ourselves.
You. No.
Also, I kind of do want to read the other one. The second one from his point of view.
Oh, really?
The second Grey book from his point of view. Just because, I don't know, I'm intrigued now.
Oh!
I'm not saying I liked the book. But I'm intrigued. But I wouldn't pay for it.
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay, though. I'd probably get it online. So yeah, we did it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for coming along.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for listening to all our other podcasts. If you got any suggestions for any future ones, let us know. Anything you want, we'll do it.
We'll cover it.
Thanks for listening to almost 2 hours of this. I hope you listened on 2 times speed.
Yes.
I'm sorry if you didn't. I'm sure you did. Anyway, thanks.
We'll end this. And we'll speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.